National CADEM Progressive Caucus had an emergency meeting last night after AB 1400, the single payer Kalra bill, was shelved. They had this emergency meeting, right? That I guess from what I was told, there was like 300 people on the call. I was working. I didn't get home until like 10:30 at night, but I got a call this morning that this happened, and was told that it went for over 3 hours long. I don't know that I can cover this whole thing because I got to get to work. I work really long hours. So I'm going to watch at least the explanation from the dude who shelved it, and try and figure out what the hell is happening here. Because, what's crazy is when I take a look at it from the way that they broadcast it. Because when I'm on these Zoom calls, I have it in the speaker view so that there's only one person on the screen at a time. Amr likes to put it, when he broadcasts it, so that you can see like a lot of different names of who's on the call. And the ones that pop up near the top are the ones who I think probably have like the closest relationships, or they have done the most interaction with the actual board. I'm guessing that's how it settles. So you can see some of Wade's there. Wade's pretty cool. He does PDA Antelope Valley, Our Revolution Antelope Valley. But then you got like Danette Abbott Wicker. She's an absolutely toxic person who runs for city council in Orange and spreads smear campaigns and sticks her nose in where it doesn't belong and tries to ruin my reputation at PDA. Got Mary Carter. Sometimes she's solid, sometimes she's a little iffy. She's definitely not really concerned about women's issues or worker rights, but okay. I have mixed feelings about Mary. Virginia Tibbetts has openly told me that she would vote Republican. I've liked Virginia too. I've worked with her in the past too, but she also sort of sways towards the patriarchy and doesn't really support women who are being attacked by men. And I don't even know. I don't really know much about Vinny. I think he was on my friends list for a while. I don't know if he still is. Not sure. Dr. Bill as well. Dr. Bill is very much into his white privilege of, well, I don't know what you're talking about, Jenna. I don't know what sort of challenges that you're facing because I'm a white man with a PhD, and so it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me. I think Jimmy Dore is just fine. I love doing interviews on Sputnik. Okay, all right. Now that I got my venting out, let's see what they have to say.
We'll ask them some questions. So I'm going to call if you're here, if you can start the video, and then I'll pin your video.
So get ready for the excuses. And let's see if there's any pushback
All right, there you are.
From Amr at all.
Let me see if I can get you to unmute here. Just a second. There you go. Yeah, so, the question everybody's asking is what happened?
Yeah, and I know everyone's angry at me, and some are gonna, don't even want to hear from me, and I get that. And look, at the end of the day, a couple of things. And there was a question that was, how does this serve the cause, in getting single payer? Because that's really, what we all want. And we knew, and even you made reference to it, Amr, that we knew it was going to, or in all likelihood, going to go down today. I think that the vote was going to actually be far more dramatic. I think that, we were going to probably be double digits or more in losing the vote. And so, I had my calculation is a couple things. One is the vote losing, what impact it has on the cause. I think that's debatable. Certainly, I think it's a bad look, but I think it's also important to hold the vote as well. If that's the folks that have that, want to force the vote, it's absolutely valid in that. I do think that for the most part, folks know where their legislator is, whether they voted for it or not. And this is one of the key factors. We're short 4 Democrats, 3 seats of which I believe will be replaced by folks that are in support of not just single payer, but 1400. We have at least several others, a half a dozen more or more, that could very well be elected by January in the same position. So we have anywhere from 4 to 8 or 9 more legislators that will be in the legislature that will be advocates for, not just supportive of single payer, but advocates for single payer. That being said, that even with those votes, we're going to need some of the current incumbents to also be on board. Given the 2-year bill nature of the bill, we didn't know if it was going to get through Housing Committee, let alone to the floor of the Assembly. And given that short time frame, I've had I spent many hours on the phone, in Zooms and conversations with my colleagues, that many of them weren't there. A good number of them, I believe, will be there or can be there, with more time and opportunity to get them there. And we need them in addition to any new members. I'm supporting 4 corporate-free candidates right now around the state.
Name names. Who wasn't there? Name names. He's like, well, you probably know your assembly person, whether or not they were in support of it. Name names. Because a lot of these people actually campaigned on Medicare for All. And then when the bill came around, they're like, I just don't know how it's going to be funded. They know how this works. They know exactly how this works. And that was a bullshit excuse. We know how it's going to be funded. We know that the language comes first and the funding gets reconciled later. And we know that everything that we're paying for medical today in premiums, in our employer matches, that just gets transferred to a different line item, and it will save money because it costs less to do it this way, and we're just transferring that money into a different line item.
God, I hope all win, but the reality is that even with those new members, we need some of the current members to get on board. And I didn't believe having a vote that was going to lose dramatically and lose by a lot was going to help get those members there. That was my call. That was my strategic evaluation of the situation.
Well, I would disagree with that because there was nothing to lose. In the case with the force the vote for the House speakership, we're talking about potentially giving up the speakership to the Republicans. That was a big no-no. That could not work. But in this case, worst case scenario, it just doesn't pass. But you put pressure on these people who campaigned on Medicare for All to go on record. This was dumb.
I take the hit for it. I take the blame for it. If no one wants to trust me or talk to me again, I get it. But I don't believe that it would have served, the cause.
Oh, the drama. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Is that supposed to be, I hold myself accountable for doing something that you didn't like, and I'm sorry, but I did it anyway. Okay.
Getting single payer done by having the vote and having it go down in flames and, further alienating, members that, would not have been there today, but I believe absolutely based upon the conversations I've had with them, numerous conversations, that we can absolutely get them there. And that includes getting more allies on board, more labor allies on board, more folks on board that I think can help move more of the votes. And so that's not a satisfactory answer, I know, to most of you, but the reality is that it was, if we know it's going to die anyway, and it's not going to make it next year, what makes it more, what puts it in the position to be as successful as possible moving forward? That was my opinion, my evaluation based upon one-on-one conversations I had with dozens of members, that rather than having the vote, which, certainly you'll get an up or down vote from folks. But like I said, I think you probably know where most of the members are already. And I think we had the opportunity to move some of them, by not having the vote, rather than having it and having them get stuck in their position because, well, they had to do the vote and it went down in flames, and they're not going to give it another opportunity because it was a relatively short period of time.
So what you're saying is that you played politics so you could preserve certain relationships, um, rather than represent the people, because you think you might be able to get something out of these people later, even though they proved to you today that they weren't going to give you things. I don't see how this is a great negotiation tactic. Sometimes leaders have to make decisions that the team under them are not really happy with. And that's your role right now, is whipping the vote and making it happen.
Get it to folks and to get people to dig into it. We were answering questions left and right. One member gave us 26 questions over the weekend that my staff worked diligently to answer. But at the end of the day, that member and others, weren't there. And we were getting responses from members even as recently over the last day or two as to whether they were there or not. This is not something that a week ago, this was the plan. It was something that using my gut instinct as well as my strategic instinct, my relationship with my colleagues, that I believe I can get there with more time, work, and working on policy aspects of the bill, very specific policy aspects of the bill that they felt like unless they were addressed, they weren't comfortable going up on the bill. But they, as opposed to some of those that are just never going to be there.
This was such a Nancy Pelosi move, because this is exactly how she does her votes too. If she doesn't have the votes, she won't move forward the legislation. But she doesn't seem to be good enough at whipping the votes. Neither do you. That's part of the job too, is making sure that you can whip those votes and get the support that you need. You should have been talking to these people about, okay, well, if you vote yes in this way, what can we do for you and your district that you need to get done? That's how it's always worked in the past. Like, have you guys forgot how to be politicians?
Which are certainly a number of them as well.
All right, so let me ask some of the questions that I know everybody has. And first of all, thank you for coming on and being transparent. You came on before when we were working on CalCare, so it makes sense for you to come on tonight, but you didn't have to, so thank you for that. But let's play this out, right? We thought that today we were going to have an up or down vote, and then the people that were against us or against the bill, we would maybe pull their endorsement. We would put pressure on them, continue to have conversations with them, and then, either defeat them or the next time up, they know what pressure is on them, and maybe we get a better result. But you obviously didn't believe in that. What did you think was going to happen if we had an up or down vote and, a bunch of these people were on the record as being against us? Why do you think they would have?
Yeah, this is a problem, Amr. This is a problem. Why the hell are you doing the bidding of these politicians that are pulling the efforts we have to move forward legislation? Ro Khanna just did the same bullshit, didn't he? You keep having Ro Khanna on the call too. Why are you so nice to these folks that are thwarting our attempts to get what we want?
And lost to us, and we couldn't just bring them around or defeat them?
Based upon conversations with them, conversations based upon very specific issues they have with the bill that needed to be worked on. It wasn't just, kind of hiding the ball and just not beat it. There were some, and I think part of the problem is that, because of the 2-year bill process and the very short timeline for engagement, that's the difference. I think we put it up for a vote and they're not there. I think most of these folks that I'm referring to, wouldn't vote no, but they just wouldn't vote for it. And I think that by putting them in that position, knowing that the bill was not going to pass anyway, would have further alienated them. And I think would have made it harder to get them on board. And, as much as I've lost credibility with almost or pretty much all of you, I think losing that credibility with them for the ability to get them on board
Well, apparently not. Amr still likes you. The board that we have in place right now is so in bed with the establishment, I can't even, y'all.
Would have forever damaged the ability. I think it would have potentially been another 5-year wait, just like with 562 before we could bring something up and do it, as opposed to now where we had the opportunity, I believe, to continue to move it forward. I mean, I think we made, look, we did things with this bill that hadn't been done before, which includes putting a funding mechanism that's never been done in the history of any single payer bill, getting it through health committee, getting it through appropriations. And I think that, it was going to die on the floor with a vote or without it. I think that there's a better opportunity to get newer legislators in and couple that with some of the incumbent legislators that we can get on board.
Weasel words. So it passed both committees, is what he's saying. And then he shelved it. Because in his assessment, he couldn't have gotten it passed. Even though he himself said that there was 4 votes. 4 votes he needed to whip. That's it.
All right. So, obviously so many of us disagree. I disagree with that.
Absolutely. I get it.
Vote.
I get it. Not all my colleagues agree with me. We had some really in-depth conversations, even with some of the co-authors, and some agree, some didn't. I think that it was hard. I mean, look, it was very hard to make the decision. We could have had a very long hearing and had the Republicans spew their stuff, which is whatever, because I'm always happy to debate them. But I think that it could have. I think that it's in a better position for the future, even though in the short term it sucks. I think that it makes it more plausible going forward.
Okay. So obviously so many of us are not okay with that decision. But even, I know that you're acting in good faith and this is what you believed was correct.
You think so?
We're over here saying that, look, you've damaged activist spirit, right? Because we felt, so many of us now are feeling like our own people let us down. And the nurses are upset. And next time around, we're thinking, all right, are you really even going to be able to lead this given the fallout from all this? And if it's not you, I mean, how many other people really have the courage to fight this? So have you not hurt us, even if you believe that, okay, so there's some members that you've protected and they'll be better for us next time? Will there even be a next time now that this whole process is damaged?
No, I mean, look, it's not about, look, I know that the sentiment is that it's done to protect members. I can care less about the members that are corporate that are never going to vote for this. It was the fact that there are members that I think very genuinely, want to continue to have that conversation that weren't there yet, that I truly believe in my heart that if we can get the votes up and continue to work with them, I think they can be there. And I think being 4 Democrats short, already being, it was an assessment that I believe that with new members coming in, many of whom will be, I believe, supportive, puts us in a much stronger position.
Okay, you can couch it in a different way, but I think it's fair to say that there are some members who you think could be allies or could vote yes at some time in the future, and you want to protect them from scrutiny and negative repercussions.
I don't think anyone should be protected from scrutiny. Look, at the end of the day, you've all had the conversations just as I have with so many of the members. You know where they were, whether they were there, not there, whether they were no. I mean, I get that a vote puts
Name names
out in the public forum like that, but I think most people know who was for the bill and not. I mean, you can talk to them, and I've got so many activists that met with folks said my members said that they're going to vote yes, even if they're not a co-author. That all came out. But I get,
I don't think you can have it both ways. Is that either those people are known to us and they get to vote no, and they get the negative repercussions of that, or there is some advantage to not putting them on the record, and we're trying to protect them from the negative scrutiny that comes with voting no. I mean, that is what we've done here. And I know.
I think also part of this, if there's any weight to what Kalra is saying, it's that he knows that Amr and Karen's plan to pull endorsements is not going to happen because they can't do it. They did not plan for it. They did not organize for it. They were not prepared. They were not prepping people within their regions to actually organize around this and get the signatures necessary to pull endorsements. There was no organizing going on. It was just a grand Hail Mary pass of, you should think about doing this and you should think about how it should happen. And we're not going to tell you. Where are the South vice chairs? Where are the other vice chairs in organizing Democratic clubs, progressive Democratic clubs throughout the state to do these sorts of actions? Why are we not seeing any on the ground organizing around putting pressure on the assembly people, on the state senators to actually support this legislation? Why is the caucus so ineffective?
You believe that to be the right path, but let's not call it something other than it is. We are protecting them from negative scrutiny of a no vote. I mean, we just did that.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair. At the end of the day, if the vote doesn't happen, then you can't say you didn't vote for it or you voted no or you voted yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So the next question is, all right, so there's this group of 5, 6, 10 people, whatever it is, that could be allies who want to protect them. But you and I both know, and you've said publicly, and I have said publicly from the very beginning, that there are some assembly members that have just bad faith from the beginning and always bring up bullshit arguments. Without even reading the bill, they're spewing arguments. They're using Republican talking points. They were going to vote no. They never provided amendments. Like over a year, they never handed you an amendment, right? They never came say, okay, let's work on the bill. I believe everybody should have health care. There are people that are clearly fine with taking corporate money, taking medical insurance money, and are clearly fine with people dying in California just because they cannot get health care. So why don't we name those?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I get that that's what a vote allows it to do. I mean, we have a lot of problems trying to get a lot of bills through, a lot of progressive bills. We barely got 257 out today, literally we just got it just by the right amount of votes. And that's something we've been working on since last year. We couldn't get an Ellis Act vote today because the votes were far short as well. And so, you're right. I mean, I think that having a vote would allow it to be really clear. And for those that say that I effed up and messed up, I take it on the chin. My call was a bad call. It's a bad call. And if folks don't trust me, if I'm not trusted to carry the bill, I get it. But I'm the one that's had the conversations with so many of the members that I believe will be there if we can get more members in support, because that gives more cover. Going up on a bill that's going to lose is much more challenging for some folks that aren't quite there than not voting on a bill that's not going to make it.
All right, so I'll just say one final thing, and then I'll open up to questions. And I know folks are going to be respectful with their questions, but I see the people lined up. And feel free to be tough, but I think we should also realize that we're trying to engage in dialogue and help the movement, not just beat each other up. But look, if we have done what we did to protect some people from negative feedback, and you think we might get them in the future, but there is this group of people that are not our allies. Why can't you just say, look, here are the 4 or 5 people that are hardcore no votes. They were never going to be with us on this vote, and they killed this bill. They might be allies on 5 or 6 other things, but on this thing, they're the bad guys. So that we know these are the people that we should target.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly. I mean, I know that look, there's a collection of moderate Democrats that don't vote for any of these things. I mean, you can kind of look up the vote on AB1400 and see who voted for it and who didn't, even though it got a majority, 41 votes. And it's hard to say, but it's hard to say because they don't identify themselves as a caucus, similar to we do as a as a progressive caucus, right? And so the votes, it's all out. I mean, you can look at votes on a wide range of issues, and it becomes very apparent. Now, there are different voters. There are some who vote more moderate that are in bluer districts. They vote right of their district. There are some in more conservative districts that are genuinely kind of scared of the purpleness of their district. And so, I think that there's a difference between those kinds of Democrats.
These are not legitimate arguments because for every voter you lose that is really just like a Republican in Democrats' clothing, you gain and ignite voters who are apathetic and don't want to go to the polls because nobody really represents them. So that's a piss poor excuse. You have your ground game, you go out there, you get those votes. But this is the big complaint that people have about politicians, is that you're not representing us, you're representing your donors list. And so people are buying politicians to prevent this sort of legislation from moving forward. Get off your butts, get out there and knock on doors and get the voters to the polls so that we can have what we want.
All right. Well, I can tell everybody that's watching this today that the Progressive Caucus, our challenge going forward is that we will be naming names, right? And we will be telling folks that didn't support CalCare, if they weren't an author, if they weren't a co-author, if they weren't publicly advocating for this bill.
A day late, $1 short. You should have done that last week.
Then we'll be doing everything we can to pull their endorsements. That was our plan before. It will be our plan now. And it's up to those assembly members. Nobody is promised an automatic endorsement, right? The bylaws allow us to pull it. We're going to pull the endorsement. And then it's up to assembly members to sell themselves and talk to their delegates and explain why they, deserve our endorsement. And if they don't get endorsed, they don't get endorsed.
I agree with that so much.
Okay. Then you should be naming names too. Tell us which delegates we should be calling. Which delegates are you going to persuade to sign in ink to pull these endorsements? These can't just, it can't just be words. What is your actual action plan and how are you organizing around this and who should we be calling?
I mean, there are folks saying they want to pull my endorsement for me holding the bill. Absolutely, they have that right. I've never shied away from accountability, whether it's doing something progressives like or don't like, doing something my moderates in my district like,
That's a very interesting way of stating that I'm giving you excuses for shying away from the accountability of holding this vote.
I have no problem with that. I don't think anyone's entitled to an endorsement. And this wasn't done to protect folks from getting or not getting an endorsement.
All right, Carolyn Fowler, I'm going to ask you to unmute and join us, please. Carolyn Fowler is the chair of the Women's Caucus and a delegate to the California Democratic Party and a longtime activist. So I'll add her and ask her to start video if she can and bring her in. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I'm not sure if you can see me. I'm sitting in the dark because that's how depressed I am.
All right, well, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I guess my question is, Amr, and really to Ash, I had never heard one concrete concern, even from my own member, full disclosure, Autumn Burke, and I did get, she was planning to vote. I don't know whether that's true. I got a text saying she has not changed her position on this. That's the text I got this morning when I asked. They met Friday. I asked, what are the concerns that she had? So all I can say is, according to what I got, she was planning to vote, but she resigned. So that's neither mute. I would like to hear, Ash, what specifically, because we never heard. People were asking people, what are your concerns so we can address them? And I know you were, like you said, you got 26 questions.
Yes.
But to have something that people could not move this forward, even if ultimately we got to the other side and it ended up being a no, because we had ACA 11 too. That they couldn't bring themselves to support it, to move it forward for further discussion, is what pisses me off.
It depends on some of the members. There was a couple, certainly some of them came up with the issues, or some of the issues they were concerned with had to do with retiree healthcare, including those like union retiree healthcare, and the lack of specificity on how to protect that in CalCare. And that's something that I committed to continue to work on. There is issues regarding, in general, some lack of specificity in general in CalCare in terms of the operative language of handing it over to a board, but not having enough specificity as to how it's going to be executed. And I think that was a major problem from a few of the members that said, look, we support, the structure of CalCare, but believe that there's more that can be done and more work that needs to be done on some of the specificity in terms of operative. And my response to that is, like, on something like this, you can't be too specific, because then you have to go to the legislature anytime you want to change anything. You have to have flexibility in terms of the ability for the CalCare board to operate the system. But that was something common. Another common thing was, keeping doctors. How do we make sure that you have enough doctors that want to come and work here? That there wasn't specificity in the bill on how to do that, more generalities on that. Even from, folks that were otherwise supportive, but I even heard that, like, what I mean by that is Jim Wood and others are committed to trying to work on some of those things in terms of how we can actually put more incentives in terms of wanting doctors to actually come here, to actually want to work here. And so there's a list of probably 10, 15 other things that we've been working really hard with members to try to get answers to, try to come up, those issues with the waiver, like what happens if, this is something that this is just a leap of faith and just believing in it, in terms of having a waiver process. What happens if a Republican comes back in? And so I don't think there's a direct answer to that. At the end of the day, are we going to dictate what we do based upon whether there's a Republican in office or not? Like, that to me made no sense. And so I can come back. I have to go to do a 5-minute thing, but I can come back because I know there's going to be a lot more questions. If that's okay with everybody, if you guys want to see me, see my face anymore.
No, please do come back.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you, Amma.
All right, thank you, Carolyn. I'm sorry, everybody, that we are that Ash had to leave for a little bit, but we wanted to get him in so at least you could hear from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's about all the time I have to actually try and watch this meeting. I understand it went for 3 hours long, so I'm expecting a phone call to get more of an actual debrief of what this was all about. But I'm glad Amr gave a little bit of pushback, but I feel like these are empty threats. You're not in a place to actually organize to pull these endorsements. You haven't been doing anything. So there was no incentive for him to actually do what you wanted him to do, because he knew that you could not pull those endorsements. You have no strategy around it. Your vice chairs have not been organizing with their districts. Other than the couple of organizations that they like to get involved in on a personal level, there is no massive progressive organizing happening in Southern California. I'm not getting any notifications from the Progressive Caucus that there are regional actions taking place. And nobody else is across the state either from the other vice chairs. So I'd like to know, what are you doing? How many Democratic club meetings are y'all jumping in on to activate those volunteers? What is the size of the actual amount of people who are participating in those Democratic clubs that could actually do something? Do they even live in the districts of the 4 assembly people? How much progressive representation do you have in those assembly members' districts where you can actually make a difference? There was no strategy around this whatsoever. And then you basically gave the guy a platform to give us a ton of excuses. A ton of excuses. I don't know. I imagine I'll learn more about how this went down, but so far, not impressed with how this went down.